Hello there, and welcome to another Mindful Monday, but Tuesday edition. Because for a lot of people, it was a holiday yesterday. And so I decided, let's let the people rest, shall we? So today I am extremely excited because we are covering part of a larger conversation where we're talking about mental health. So last week we talked about anxiety. And this week, beautiful souls, we want to talk about ADHD. So ADHD or attention deficit hyperactive disorder, I have to really think about that, is something that I want to dive into today. And I'm going to talk about it, of course, bringing in the traditional Western medical model view and perspective of ADHD. And then I also want to complement that or contrast it, if you will, with the spiritual, indigenous, ancestral ideas and perspective when it comes to, you know, ADHD. And I want us to be able to have a conversation so we can talk about what a holistic approach is, right? Everybody's journey to wholeness and fullness and wellness is different. And so maybe incorporating some aspects, whether it be from the medical model or the indigenous model, is something that works best for you. Or if we're talking about someone you care about, a loved one, a child, what have you, this is just to open up the conversation to provide access and awareness to maybe other thought patterns and perspectives, ways of being that you hadn't considered to even think about before. So as we get into this, I want to really help with addressing the stigma when it comes to ADHD, ADD, mental health disorders, anxiety, et cetera, et cetera. There's a huge stigma around mental health. And so this is also my goal is to help really change that so that it doesn't become something that people get ostracized from. And that's why I love bringing in the spiritual perspective. So ADHD is really a common neurodevelopment disorder that often begins in childhood and can continue into adulthood. And it's really characterized by symptoms of hyperactivity, impulsiveness, an ability to not really be attentive, maybe disconnecting. And generally it's generally it's generally managed with traditional therapy and medication. So I wanted to shed some light, and this is coming obviously from the Western medical model's view of what ADHD. And so while, traditional therapies and approaches can certainly be beneficial, and I know some people who have benefited from the traditional Western model of therapy, it could sometimes feel limiting. And this is where the spiritual and holistic practices really come into play and offer a layer of support and just a value of being seen and heard that some Western perspectives don't offer, especially when we talk about from the medical model. So by incorporating spirituality and holistic approaches, indigenous practices, we can really enhance the management, the care, the understanding of ADHD. And looking beyond the conventional methods, we open ourselves up to a world of healing that touches, not just the mind, but the body, the soul, the spirit as well. So again, looking at that whole holistic approach to healing when it comes to mental health challenges. And so, when it comes to many ancestral and indigenous cultures, their understanding of ADHD is very vast from the Western medical model. So instead of viewing ADHD as purely a disorder, it's often seen as a unique way of interacting with the world and has certain strengths tied to it versus how we see it most of the time often being a challenge or a negative thing to have. They see it actually as being a benefit because you get to interact with the world in a different way. Indigenous perspectives often, more times than not, emphasize the importance of community and connection to nature and spiritual practices in managing symptoms of ADHD. Like, for instance, individuals with ADHD have been seen as having this really special gift for creative and intuition, and their energy gets channeled through traditional activities and rituals that really complement the individual's creativity and heightened intuition. It's these cultures, they also use holistic practices such as herbal medicine, plant medicine, storytelling, and drumming circles to help individuals in the community find balance. The emphasis is on understanding a person from a holistic perspective and integrating them into community where in some, especially when we think about the Western model of mental health disorders, especially when it first got started in, not to say anything bad about the church, but how it really was a point of contention and disconnection from church going people and other people because it was seen not of God if you had a mental health challenge or disorder, and that, if God's way of punishing you, or this is the devil or demons or what have you. Not to say that you can't be possessed, because all things are possible, but that really is where the root of a lot of stigmatism and mental challenges stem from, is this break that we had, and then it didn't help that we created mental health as a section of health versus the physical doctor, right? You have the mental doctor and you have the physical doctor, and very rarely did they interact and talk about what's going on with the whole individual who has both the mental component and the physical component. But again, that's a story for another time. So, like I was saying, when we talk from the standpoint of the Western medical model and their views of ADHD, is primarily seen as just the neurological, the neurodevelopmental disorder, which has those specific symptoms, which can impact someone's daily life, especially if we're looking at a life from the perspective of what we deem is right and what's normal versus this is just how somebody else's way of interacting with the world, and it's different than my way of interacting with the world, and that's okay. It's seen as something to overcome with medications like stimulants, which are commonly used to help people manage the symptoms by increasing their ability to pay attention and reducing the hyperactivity and impulsiveness. And behavioral therapies aim to teach coping skills and strategies to people to help be able to modify their behaviors to improve daily function. Now, again, nothing wrong with this, but it's just one way of viewing this particular, and I hate to even use the word challenge, this particular thing we decide to categorize, right? Again, with mental health disorders, mental health challenges, mental health issues, whatever you fill in the blank, however you want, we tend to pathologize the individual instead of taking a broader look at society as a whole, which does the individual a disservice because it's like, well, everybody else is operating, as they should, like the hamster on the wheel, and they're doing all the things how everybody else is doing it. How come you want to do something different? And so we need to fix you so that you operate in the same way that everyone else is behaving. Granted, we all do things differently. But that's a story for another time. But in that perspective, like I said, we don't take the context of the other environmental factors, society factors, genetic factors that play into why a particular individual deals with or interacts with the world in a different way that, than, their parents, their grandparents, people in their community interact with. We don't look at how society in itself is a mental health cluster. And therefore, you're going to have all these variations of individuals who interact with society, interact with nature in a completely different way. So, while, again, the traditional medical model, when we look at mental health disorders, like I say, is not wrong. It's just that these approaches, which are often seen effective, depending, again, what your view of effective is, they often focus more on the symptoms and managing this, and versus really trying to get at the root of what's going on. Again, pathologizing the individual versus society as a whole. If you've read Gabor Mate's The New Normal, you understand what I'm talking about. So thinking or taking a perspective of really integrating both the Western perspective and the more holistic Indigenous practice, you can create a holistic approach to being able to navigate and manage ADHD to where we're not just addressing the symptoms, but we're nurturing the individual and we're really catering to their strengths and finding things and avenues where they are extremely successful in because they interact with the world in a way that some of us do not. So why not put them in roles or situations or leadership positions that cater to that versus let's change you so then you act like everybody else. Things that you can do, obviously, mindfulness, meditation. These are ways in which an individual who is classified as ADHD can take a more holistic, well-rounded approach because create it helps create focus within by aligning your inner values with the outer experience that you're having. It also helps being able to train your mind and brain and flow with the breath. I say basically how your breath goes is how your mind is flowing. So if you were if hypervigilant, right, and you were breathing very erratic, your brain is also going probably 90 miles an hour, and maybe you've got some anxiety that's coming up because you can't breathe, just like how I'm not breathing right now. And when you take that breath, you're able to not only slow your breath down, but then relax and calm your mind, your thoughts, your emotion. So I want you to just think about this, right? I hope this opened up your mind just a little bit. When it comes to managing and as you may be on your journey and have ADHD or have been told you have ADHD or you might suspect you have ADHD, think about all the different ways that you can approach this particular situation or challenge, if you will, both from the ancestral wisdom that is given and the modern practices where we can find a balance that is fulfilling in a way that honors our highest self and embraces all of that we are versus maybe feeling as though just something is wrong within you that needs to be corrected and fixed. So I hope that you found this little tidbit of information. I hope you found it helpful. I hope that maybe it sparks a curiosity within you to go deeper and dive and figure out what other traditions, cultures, look at things that maybe you find as a challenge as something to be celebrated and successful because it helps us reframe our own understanding of life. It helps you maybe navigate a new pathway, a new chart forward. And then also when we think about how we measure our lives as being successful, it's really good at grounding you to what you truly value in this life. It could be, you could be going on one path and valuing one thing, and by bringing in these other perspectives and looking at the coin from all different sides, it helps reframe you and grounds you into a reality that really benefits you as the individual, not just who you've been told to be or who you have even accepted the labels to be, right? It grounds you in your own understanding and wisdom that is innate, that is right and is true for you versus what I might say or anyone else might say. So again, hopefully this was a door, a pathway, a gate. This vibe resonated in your spirit in a way that maybe some other things you've heard about ADHD and how to navigate it and management are a little bit different. If you have any questions, happy to chat with you. Let's open up the conversation. Let's break the stigma. We all go through challenging, difficult times, and whether it's labeled as a mental health problem, challenge, illness, or not, I am here with you. I am honored that you allow me to be on your journey with you. Have a beautiful rest of your week and take care. Bye.